Have you ever been disappointed? Have you ever asked someone to do something they said they would and then they didn't? You ever had someone who did something you really, really wish they wouldn't have done? Yeah. Listen, I've had people say stuff to me, and I'm like, I can't believe you just said that. I wish I was recording so people would believe that you said that to me. But you know who's let me down more than anyone else? Me. And you know what the Bible says about trusting yourself, about putting your confidence and faith in yourself? It says in Proverbs 28:26, he that trusteth in his own heart is a fool. Now, isn't that so countercultural? Isn't that just right in the eye of Disney's Follow Your Heart? You know what I mean? Like, no offense, Mickey Mouse, but I mean, come on. Like, my heart has gotten me into some really, really tough things. Almost all the things that have happened in my life that I really am like, man, I made a mess out of that. My first 2 years of marriage, man, that I did not stick the takeoff for that at all. It was rough. But I want you to know something, that we've all disappointed ourselves. And it starts in that first garden where our heart is bent in the wrong direction. But when Jesus came out of the grave, he said, hey, you can put your trust in me, not just because of what I've said, but because of what I've done. He proved through the resurrection that everything he said was true. Listen, if you want to go disprove the resurrection, be my guest, because when I was 17 and questioning all of these things, I did a deep dive, and I want to tell you something, that even the Jews and Muslims know that he rose again from the dead. They don't know how. They don't know how he did it. They don't know why he did it, but they believe even that he did it. And friend, I will tell you that God sent Jesus to us to prove that we could put our confidence and faith in him. So here you have the disciples. They walked and talked with him. They knew him better than anyone else. And in verse number 9, they didn't remember that he said that he must rise again from the dead. They didn't think about that. And so the disciples in verse 10, they went home. They just said, well, I don't know where he is. Let's go home. And Mary said, I'm not going home. Verse 11. But Mary stood without the sepulchre, and she was weeping. Now, guys, I don't know a lot about being a husband, but whenever my wife is crying, I normally ask her why. And that's exactly what God sends an angel to ask Mary. He says, woman, now I would not suggest that, okay? But, there's a little translation. Woman, why weepest thou? And she says, listen, I don't want to talk about it. And that's normally what a woman says. I don't want to talk about it. But she says, just tell us where you've laid him. And when she turns around, because she doesn't get an answer. So when she turns around, because they couldn't lay a person who's alive anywhere, so she turns around, and Jesus asked her the same question. So she just thinks he's the gardener. So she's like, great, we got angels, we got gardeners. Where's Jesus? And in verse 15, look at this. This is awesome. Jesus doesn't just say, why are you crying? He says, who are you seeking? Whom seekest thou? Hey, Mary, who are you looking for? I mean, he's standing right in front of her. Hey, who are you looking for? Now, this was the exact same thing that the disciples were asked by the angel in Luke chapter 24 and verse 5 and 6. He said, well, why are you seeking the living among the dead? Why are you in the garden tomb? Jesus said he was going to come alive. In fact, he said he is risen just as he said. Listen, he is alive. And if you go to Israel right now, as I have been, and you walk into that garden tomb as I have been, I want you to know the most significant thing is not that it is a great archaeological site and that it is a great religious place. No, the greatest thing is when you walk into this place and when you see it, when you walk into this place where it was the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea and they had to carve it out quickly. You can even see the marks marks of how they carved it out for someone else with whom it was not intended. And when you look at where Jesus was laid and then you turn around to walk out, there is a plaque that quotes that verse in Luke 24:6 that says, "He is not here, for he is risen." He is risen indeed. And that is what we are celebrating today.